blast! Welcome back to another Dungeons & Dragons video. I hope you are doing well. Today we are talking about something that I think is extremely important. And of course, as you know, my opinions are the best ones, and anyone who disagrees with me is objectively wrong. What's the point of this video? For me to tell you these 3 things you should not ignore in your campaign. Let's start with number 1. And what I think is probably one of the most important things you should not ignore in your Dungeons & Dragons campaign is your animals and your plants. Now that's going to sound like, oh, it's animals and plants, so what are they going to do? Look at this guy. It's pretty cool, right? But it goes deeper than that. It really does. Because animals and plants make up a lot of what your party will see. I mean, think about it. Look outside your window right now, considering that you don't live in a city. There's probably plants out there. There's probably at least a couple birds. Having strange little animals and plants get brought up time to time in your campaign, or just whenever, can be a really big thing between a detailed campaign to a detailed campaign. Having perhaps plants even have their own functions. Perhaps some of them will heal the party or poison them. Or maybe some of the animals are venomous. Or perhaps, again, they have a strange healing property. Animals and plants are the life of the world, quite literally, and ignoring them is losing out on a large chunk of opportunity. So, consider adding this guy to your campaign. Or perhaps this cool little guy. Or even this one. Number 2. There's a saying in this community. Some say that if your moon does not have a dark and dangerous eldritch entity or horror plural on the moon, you're doing your moon wrong. And to some extent, that is true. Ignoring your celestial bodies, whether it's a moon or perhaps a distant planet, is again a lost opportunity. Perhaps you don't have to go super in-depth with the outer planets or moons if you don't want to, especially if your players aren't super interested in that either, but giving them names and different colors at the very least, and maybe perhaps a small function in the world your players are in, is a good idea, and it adds again a nice layer of depth, and shouldn't be ignored. Perhaps one of the moons is responsible for the ability to even cast magic in the first place, and that could lead into a plot point where someone wants to destroy the moon. There's lots of opportunities for your moons or your planets out there, so don't ignore them in your next campaign, or perhaps even the one you're starting right now. The last and third tip I can give you is do not ignore the detail-oriented parts of your campaign, or the rules, or what have you. Perhaps your players are playing an artificer or a wizard, and they enjoy making potions, or enchanting, or making armor. Give that system a few more details for depth. Perhaps a good roll on their smithing tools makes it so their armor gives them a +1 bonus, on top of the already +18 AC they get from their plate armor. Giving these systems depth and different abilities and things like that will maybe not only incentivize your players to explore them if that's what you want, but if the players already like these systems, it gives them even more incentive to have fun. It adds an entire personal layer to your campaign, which is basically free work done for you. If your players were having maybe some trouble getting involved in some places, giving them that personal layer might be what you need to get them really, really involved. So try it. Maybe mention it to your players. Say, hey, I will let you craft things and see how it goes. Can't hurt, and it would probably be a lot of fun. The bonus tip I can give you here. This is very important, so make sure you listen. Make sure you're listening with your ears. Perhaps maybe all 3 of them, perhaps maybe only the one. Do not ignore your players. And you're probably like, what? I'm not ignoring my players. What are you talking about? Stop pointing fingers at me. And I'm not saying that, oh, you're ignoring your players, because then I would be telling myself I am ignoring my players. What I mean is, sometimes your players might have the one really small complaint that they don't like, but they're not going to bring it up to you, right? Because, no sensible person would complain about something very small, a minor annoyance. But for me personally, I do not like the charmed condition. I think it kind of takes away from player agency, and sure, there maybe a party member that can help me remove it, but there are cases where that won't happen. So perhaps your player has a similar issue. Maybe they don't like a status effect. Maybe they don't like how something is ruled and they want to change it, but it's so small and minuscule that they're not going to bring it up. Talk to your players. Ask them, is there something in this campaign you don't like? It's a very upfront question. You might get some very abrasive answers, but it will ultimately help you in improving your campaign. Unless your player's like, yeah, I don't like Dungeons and Dragons, can we play Roblox instead? In which case, you don't have a campaign issue, you have a player issue, and that is an entire video on its own. So now we're here at the end of the video, at the end of time. I hope this video was indeed helpful to you, and if it was not, I'm not entirely sure what to do, because this small void prison in which I exist only lets me do so much. I hope you have a good day now, maybe perhaps a good evening or a good morning, depends on where you are. Bye-bye, and adios.